Okay, so here's the amazing thing. Democrats and Republicans apparently agree on the Dreamers. Okay, Trump agrees that he wants them to stay. The Republicans agree that they want them to stay. The Democrats agree that they want them to stay. So naturally, that means that they're clubbing each other in the head with baseball bats. Because that's how our politics works now. The way our politics works is that people don't disagree on anything, but they have to invest their politics with a deeper meaning, and so they beat the living crap out of each other every single day over virtually nothing. Understand something. The Democrats agree with Trump on Daca. Trump agrees with the Democrats on Daca. He wants Congress to pass Daca. Okay, the idea that there's any broad disagreement here is insane, but that's not the way this is being painted. So President Obama immediately decides to come back out of the woodwork and bug everyone. We just couldn't get rid of him. He goes on Facebook and he decides that he has to defend his executive amnesty. Here's what he says. He says, quote, "Immigration can be a controversial topic. We all want safe, secure borders and a dynamic economy. And people of goodwill can have legitimate disagreements about how to fix our immigration system so that everybody plays by the rules. But that's not what the action the White House took today is about. This is about young people who grew up in America. These dreamers are Americans in their hearts, in their minds, in every single way but one, on paper. They were brought to this country by their parents, sometimes even as infants. They may not know a country beside ours. They might not even know a language besides English. Over the years, politicians of both parties have worked to write legislation that would have told these young people, our young people, that if your parents brought you here as a child, if you've been here a certain number of years, and if you're willing to go to college or serve in our military, you get a chance to stay, earn your citizenship. For years, I asked Congress to send me such a bill. That bill never came." And he goes on and he calls Trump cruel, right? He says, "It's cruel. What if our kid's science teacher or our friendly neighbor turns out to be a dreamer? Where are we supposed to send her? To a country she doesn't know or remember, with a language she may not even speak?" Okay, this notion that if you were brought here as a child, you therefore must stay because we have a responsibility to you. This has never made sense to me. It's not a good argument. It's like saying your parents embezzled, so you get to keep the cash. Okay, it may hurt you. It's not your fault your parents embezzled. Is it your fault your parent was a criminal? But we all live with the legacy of things that our parents did that were wrong. It's the country's decision as to whether people should stay or not. This is why I've always thought it's so weird that when it comes to immigration, we always treat people as a class. I'm not a big fan of treating people as members of a class, as you know. Right? I know the left likes doing this, right? You're Hispanic, or you're black, you're an illegal immigrant, you're a Jew, you're a woman. I like treating people as individuals. So this seems to me as though we should approach illegal immigrants in the same case-by-case way that we approach people who are trying to come here legally. And when my father-in-law came to the United States with his wife legally, he had to go through a rigorous process. He had to show that he was employed. He had to show that he wasn't going to be on welfare. He had to show that he was going to be employed by this employer for a certain period of time. He had to have a green card, right? He had to go through this long process. It took my wife 10, 15 years to get citizenship. Okay, that seems to me the same way that we should treat dreamers. That just because you were here from the time that you were 2, let's say, just because you were here from the time you were 2, that doesn't mean that you are automatically a citizen, and that means that the country has the ability to make the decision as to whether you are a detriment or benefit to the country or not. So it seems to me we should be approaching this on an individual level, but the temptation for Democrats is always to treat everybody as a class and then say that if you want to get rid of some members of the class, you hate the entire class. You understand how this logic works? This is how Democrats operate. What they do is they say, all black people are victims. Then you say, well, that's not true. Some black people are not victims. They say, you hate black people. Don't you understand? You hate them. That's the reason you're targeting black people right now, is because you hate them, because all black people are victims. And they do the same thing with Hispanics and illegal immigrants. They say, well, all of these dreamers are wonderful people who deserve to stay. You say, well, some of them probably are. Many of them probably are, but some of them probably are not. And Democrats say, how dare you attack the dreamers? How dare you attack them? I mean, there are very few dreamers who are very bad people. How dare you say some of them should go? How dare you say we should screen them? How dare you say we should treat them as individuals? That means that you hate the entire class. You must be a racist. And this is the routine that Obama is pulling today. He says, the action taken today isn't required legally. It's a political decision and a moral question. Okay, first of all, it was required legally, but Trump undercut his own case for why it was required legally by waiting 7 months to do it. It's also weird that if you say it's unconstitutional, that you're saying that in 6 months you may re-implement it. So Trump has a case, but he's undercut his own case. And then Obama continues, he says, whatever concerns or complaints Americans may have about immigration in general, we shouldn't threaten the future of this group of young people who are here through no fault of their own, who pose no threat, who are not taking away anything from the rest of us. I'm very sick of this argument again. The through no fault of their own routine is really a bad argument. Okay, there are a lot of people who the vast majority of criminals are criminals technically through no fault of their own, not the vast majority, but a significant minority of criminals are people who maybe grew up in bad circumstances without any sense of morality, and they make decisions because they're stupid, and now we put them in jail. Okay, is that their fault? You know, there's a contingent default. It's not quite the same thing. I mean, if you're born in the United States, obviously you have no control over the circumstances of your birth. But, I mean, I would like to apply the same logic to people who are wealthy, right? Why is it that people who are born into wealthy families are supposed to pay all of their estate tax, right? They're supposed to have all their money given away. Were they born rich through some fault of their own? Was that their fault? Like, we can't determine where we're born, but we can determine where we go from there, which is why I think we should offer a pathway to citizenship for dreamers who we think ought to stay in the same way that legal immigrants ought to stay, but they ought to go to the back of the line. He says this action is contrary to our spirit and to common sense. Business leaders, faith leaders, economists, Americans of all political stripes called on the administration not to do what it did today. So, you know, Obama's going nuts, and this is pretty common. You're seeing all the Democrats lose their minds. Andrea Mitchell, she comes out from MSNBC and she says, Jeff Sessions used the word illegal aliens. That's just offensive. It's just terrible.
It also denied jobs to hundreds of thousands of Americans by allowing those same illegal aliens to take those jobs.
To say nothing of his use of the word illegal aliens, which is offensive to a lot of people and not correct. But, Michael, the fact is, I don't know what he's talking about when he talks about the border, because this has nothing to do with the border.
Oh, no, we certainly, that's certainly the correct term. I mean, illegal alien just means a person who came here illegally. So, but again, the idea here is that you're a racist if you suggest that we have to control our borders. Joy Behar says the same thing. She says, it's racist. It's racist.
I mean, if the Trump administration is all about jobs, a lot of them employ people also, by the way, but if they're all about jobs and saving money and having money in the United States, then why would you then get rid of people who contribute $24 billion?
That's the lie, that it's not about that, because none of these kids or people, whatever ages they are from Sweden or Norway. They're all from these brown, so-called brown country. You can call it brown people who are not white, non-white people. So there's racism involved here, and why don't they just admit it? Well,
okay, the idea, by the way, that all dreamers are from Mexico is just not true. Okay, the fact is that dreamers are from a wide variety of countries. Apparently, there are 800,000 undocumented immigrants who are given a Daca referral. Here they are by top countries of origin. Okay, you ready? El Salvador is number 1 at about 28,000. Guatemala is number 2. Honduras is number 3. Peru is number 4. Then South Korea. Okay, so about 7,200, 7,300 members of the dreamer community who are South Korean. Okay, the Philippines is on this list at 5,000. India has 3,000 people on this list. Okay, there are a lot of people from South and Latin America, but that's because we have a contiguous continent with them. But the idea that it is only people who are from countries that are south of the border, that's not technically true. It's just not technically true. But again, the idea is that Trump is a racist if he wants to enforce the border. But the problem is Trump doesn't even want to enforce the border. Okay, that's the thing that's amazing. Trump isn't even he's not even interested in deporting all these people. And I'm going to explain why I think a lot of people are going to go along with this regardless, and it just demonstrates why partisanship has now taken a front seat over good policy on both sides. So the left is going nuts over this, even though they know it's kabuki theater. Why are the left going nuts over this, even though they know it's kabuki theater? Because they're trying to damage Trump, even though Trump's actual intent here is to do the same thing that they want. And some of this is on Trump. He's playing a double game here. On the one hand, he's trying to appease his base. On the other hand, he's trying to signal to everybody that wink, wink, nod, nod, I kind of like Daca. Like, Republicans are split on this, and you're not seeing Trump come down in one direction or another. It's kind of fascinating, actually. Lindsey Graham, for example, he sounds exactly like a Democrat when he says to Dreamers, you've done nothing wrong.
To the DREAM Act population, there are a lot of people on the Republican side of the aisle understand your dilemma, and we want to find a fair solution. Because you have done nothing wrong. You came here as children. You've contributed to society. You have passed criminal background checks. You've demonstrated your ability to be beneficial to the country now and the future. The only thing that stands between you and certainty in your life is the Congress. That cannot be that reassuring.
Okay, that's the same thing that Trump is trying to say, is that it's Congress's fault. Congress should step in and fix all of this. And here's the thing. The Democrats agree. Dianne Feinstein, right, Democrat senator from California, my state. She's not a good senator, but she is a bright lady. Here's what she had to say about Obama's executive amnesty. She said Congress should have fixed this a long time ago.
DACA was executive order. Legal is the law of passage of something. There are 10 attorneys general that are prepared to sue. I don't want to get into that. The point is DACA is here, and we've got 800,000 young people.
Well, your answer indicates, though, that it's on shaky legal ground.
It is. That's why we need to pass a law.
Okay, she got ripped up and down by her own party for saying what is obviously true, that Daca was on shaky legal ground. And it's really funny because you're seeing the media go nuts right now. Look at the uncertainty that's been created by Daca. Yes, the uncertainty created by Daca is because President Obama decided to use executive amnesty instead of trying to get something through Congress. That's why there's uncertainty, excuse me. He asked all of these people to give up all their information to the federal government, knowing full well that the next president could very well strike down Daca. He had faith that he could use these people as pawns. The Democrats have been using these people as pawns for a long time, and now President Trump is using these people as pawns as well. It's really, I find this whole thing really distasteful. I got to be honest with you. I find it really distasteful because I think there's an honest argument to be made for deportation for a certain number of people who are here illegally and not benefiting the country as a whole, again, on an individual level. But Obama used these people as pawns in 2012 to win re-election. He had control of the Congress from 2008 to 2010. He did not do a damn thing on any of this. This was an easy pass. This is an easy one. He could have done this in 2009. He didn't. He chose not to. And then he used them as pawns in 2012 in order to create this poison pill situation for President Trump. And now President Trump, in order to appease his base, is getting rid of Daca just so long as Congress will pass something else. I mean, he's pledging that if Congress doesn't pass something else, he's going to go right back to Daca, or at least will consider it. Is any of this good policy? No, it's not good policy. And it shows you why partisanship on both sides is destroying the debate. Everyone on both sides basically agrees on this issue, even though they probably shouldn't. And yet they're bashing each other's brains in for this kabuki theater for their own base, because the Democratic base refuses to allow Democrats to work with Trump, and the Republican base wants to pretend that Trump is actually not in favor of Daca. Blech. The idea that there's any broad disagreement here is insane, but that's not the way this is being painted. So President Obama immediately decides to come back out of the woodwork and bug everyone. We just couldn't get rid of him. He goes on Facebook, and he decides that he has to defend his executive amnesty. Here's what he says. He says, quote, "Immigration can be a controversial topic. We all want safe, secure borders and a dynamic economy. And people of goodwill can have legitimate disagreements about how to fix our immigration system so that everybody plays by the rules. But that's not what the action the White House took today is about. This is about young people who grew up in America. These dreamers are Americans in their hearts, in their minds, in every single way but one, on paper. They were brought to this country by their parents, sometimes even as infants. They may not know a country beside ours. They might not even know a language besides English. Over the years, politicians of both parties don't disagree on anything, but they have to invest their politics with a deeper meaning, and so they beat the living crap out of each other every single day over virtually nothing. Understand something. The Democrats agree with Trump on Daca. Trump agrees with the Democrats on Daca. He wants Congress to pass Daca. Okay, so here's the amazing thing. Democrats and Republicans apparently agree on the Dreamers. Okay, Trump agrees that he wants them to stay. The Republicans agree that they want them to stay. The Democrats agree that they want them to stay. So naturally, that means that they're clubbing each other in the head with baseball bats, because that's how our politics works now. The way our politics works is that people